Hello, hello, and welcome to the RCD ShareNet. I'm Dave Thompson, and I am ShareNet coordinator or one of the ShareNet contributors here and the community outreach coordinator at the Richmond Center for Disability. And today we have a great topic, something that comes up quite often since I've been working in sort of nonprofit and people with disabilities. And then when I got a dog, it's even more of a topic. So we're going to be talking about guide dog etiquette today and more information about service dogs and whatnot with someone who has one. So I would like to introduce Emily, and I'm going to try to, your last name is Trepanier.
That's
Did I
pretty
say
good.
that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And Emily is a aspiring Paralympian in snowboarding, and you have a service dog whose name is Darling.
Yes.
So how old is Darling?
Darling is 4 years old and she will be 5 on November 18th.
And what breed is she?
Darling is a golden retriever crossed with a yellow lab. She has about quarter golden in her and the rest is yellow lab. So
okay, and we're gonna probably I do have a couple of pictures that will be popping up of her as well. Is she beside you or
she's beside me right now, but on the ground. So.
Right, but on the ground. How long does a service dog usually work?
It really depends on the dog,
okay.
How healthy the dog is and how well they're working with like the handler.
Okay.
And if the dog is like keeping up to what like the handler's lifestyle is, it really varies. Some dogs will go for quite a few years. So for example, my first dog, she worked for almost 9 years. But I've heard of people retiring their dogs within a few years of them starting like working with them. So yeah, it just depends on a variety of different factors. So.
Yeah, because I was kind of curious because I have a friend who just retired her first dog, and it was 9 years.
Yeah. Oh wow. That's
good. And so I wasn't sure if there was some sort of set number or whatnot.
Not really. It's.
It all depends on the dog, and
it really depends on the dog and like how well they're doing, and
I guess if the dog has had individual health problems and whatnot as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And how long have you guys been together?
Darling and I have been together for a little over 3 years now.
All right. Okay. Awesome. So I have 5 questions here that we got the most out. My first question is this. The other day, I was at Granville Island and I saw this dog that had no ID on it. And I started to talk to it. And the woman, like right away, she's like, it's working. It's a service dog. It's working. But there was no tag, no collar, no brag, nothing at all. It was very confusing. Does that happen? I know that sometimes there's people that will pre-train dogs to sort of see if they're set. And they kind of see, oh yeah, this dog is good. It looks like it will be good for the training, or no, it's too crazy and it's going to be a pet sort of thing. But I just was a little confused because I saw no indication of this being a service dog at all.
So if it was an actual service dog, whether it was actually working or in training, there are specific requirements that they have to have in order for it to be deemed a service dog. So I know for some service dogs, because there's multiple kinds out there, they have to have either a vest or a harness on. So usually when they're in training, it's usually like a vest that they wear or like a coat or something. And then when they're actually working, so for example, my seeing eye guide dog, Darling, when she's working, she has to have her harness on so that it tells the public that she is a guide dog. And it actually says right on the harness that she is a guide dog. So, and then we also have to carry around some form of ID from the school itself, whether they do it or you get it from like the government or wherever you're living. They have certain IDs that you have to carry around. But just seeing a dog and having the person say that's a service dog, I'm gonna kind of question that.
Well, I just sort of backed off, but she was kind of rude. Like it was kind of like
That's a bit of an issue in the service dog community. Is the having dogs out there that people are saying, oh, this is a service dog, where in actual fact it might not actually be a service dog. They might just want to have their dog like always with them, right? So
yeah. And this was outside. She wasn't inside or anything. It was just, and it would be like any, how thousands of times I've approached a dog or a dog has approached me. It was just sort of weird because it was like right out of her mouth right away. He's working. He's a service. I'm like, okay, whatever.
That's not good.
Yeah. So I know it's common knowledge that you should never pet a service dog.
Yeah.
But what would be the other most important things you should never do or not do?
I would say no, never feed a service dog, because some dogs actually are on a special diet or they have allergies. So for example, my first dog actually had a grain allergy, so I had to be really careful of like what food and what treat she would get, and even like if she was a little bit of a scavenger, so that was another concern of making sure she could eat anything.
She'd eat almost anything, yeah.
So I'd say not feeding a service dog, because you never know like if they have like special like a diet that they have to have, or like allergies or like special training that they have for food. So
alrighty. Anything else do you think?
I would also say not to touch the service dog's equipment.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like their harness or their vest or anything. Just because you want to make sure the person that is the handler of the service dog, they always know where their equipment is. So
right, and there's no confusion on who's who, and
yeah.
Awesome. All right. So is there a time or a scenario where it is possible to pet or interact with a service dog?
Absolutely.
How do you know that?
So when they're not working, so usually if their harness is off or their vest is off, that's the best time that you can interact or play with a service dog. But also the big thing I always tell people is to make sure you ask the handler first before you interact with the dog, because just to make sure they know what's happening, and if it's not a good time, you got to respect that, right? So
right. Okay. Awesome.
It's absolutely time to play with a service dog.
Yes, because they need that too, right?
They definitely need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their work is full stuff.
And because if you're kind of scared to just not, because if you don't know, this is why we're kind of doing this. Yeah. If you don't know, you're just going to avoid it altogether.
Yeah.
And that's sad. So if you have a little information, you can go, okay, well, I can ask, because this person was sitting in a dog park. There was no harness on it. The person who needs the dog was sitting, so she probably wasn't moving. So it's probably a good time to talk to the dog, right?
Yeah, yeah. I always just tell people, when in doubt, just make sure you ask the person before you like pet the dog. It doesn't matter, like if it's a service dog or like any sort of dog. I always like tell people, make sure you're always asking that person, so you never know, right? So.
And I do that with my dog, because people love to touch him, and I said, well, as long as a lot of times they go for his tail, because his tail is a nice poofy little snowball, and he whips around and said, if you would be wondering what was going on if someone touched your bum there too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then they get startled, and it's like, well, just show them your hand first and you're good, right?
Yeah.
So how do service dogs and support dogs differ?
So service dogs and support dogs. Okay, so are you talking like therapy dogs or service dogs?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I thought you were talking about. So service dogs, they're allowed anywhere where the public goes.
Right.
I think there's a little bit more restrictions for therapy dogs. Where they can go. I know they can go to a lot of places too, but I think there's just a little bit more restrictions as to where therapy dogs, but service dogs can go wherever like the public goes. Any place that they want in the public, the service dog is allowed to accompany the handler. Another thing that is also evolving in the field right now is the service dogs and therapy dogs. Some airlines actually are requiring a little bit more. There's like a little bit more rules around what type of therapy, what type of therapy animals and dogs are allowed on airplanes.
Because there was a couple high-profile cases.
Yeah.
I remember some woman had a pig or a chicken or something.
I've heard of a snake too.
Yeah, and I've heard of a snake as well.
Oh my, what?
I'm sorry, but come on.
Yeah. So I think that
I'd like to bring my support alligator.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. And I think their training, their certification is slightly different versus between a therapy dog and a service dog. I think the number of hours that training or certifications needed.
Yeah, I was just looking up the BC recommendations, and they you don't technically, it's more of this emotional support is actually kind of like getting a doctor's prescription.
Yeah.
You have to have a letter from the doctor.
Yeah.
And they don't really have a certification for emotional support dogs, but you have to be prescribed it basically.
A harder one to get certification for. So.
Yeah. Alrighty. Now, I know people are going to laugh at me on this one, but I've really had to find it out. If you are a totally blind person using a dog and the dog goes to the bathroom, how do you pick it up? Do you just get a pass, or is there a signal?
No, you have to pick it up though.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking, but how do you know?
So when I was training with both of my service dogs, we were actually taught with a rug first different strategies to tell when your dog was going when and what they were doing, and then we had to try it out with like a real dog that wasn't actually our dog, so that we could like feel how they were feeling, because they have a different feeling. You can use your hand and put it on their back, and you can tell from what they're doing.
Yeah, you can feel the muscles and that sort of thing. Okay.
And it's always, when you're relieving your dog, it's always on leash, so it's easier for you to find.
But they don't have a certain sound that they do or anything like that. Okay. Well, some people thought I was nuts, and other people went, wait a second. Yeah, how do they do that?
No, they don't do a certain sound.
Because you kind of wonder, right?
Yeah.
And so, well, this has been very good. I want to recap what our big points are today. And thank you again for coming on. And you visited us in the summer, and we've got a couple pictures that we'll show of you guys coming to the center. And so the big thing is like everyone should know, you should never touch a service dog, especially if you don't talk to the owner first. Never feed it, right? And never touch its equipment, or the big ones.
Yeah.
So that's great for people to know. That gives them, and that there is a specific time. Usually for most, it's always having that communication. I've been noticing this problem with biking lately, that no one talks anymore. No one says on your left, and no one rings their bell, and people just pass.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you speak?
Hit by a bike the other day.
Yeah, and no one just says, oh, I'm over here and whatnot else, right? So just, say, is it okay? See the situation, and if you have this information, at least now you're a little bit more confident. So there are times when the dog needs to play. They need to have that well-roundedness to be an effective partner, right? You can't have them totally isolated all the time and not have those social skills, just like any other dog. So you just have to be able to catch it at the right time and always communicate with the owner.
Yes.
Would that be good for, good information we're giving out?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. And this is for the RCD ShareNet. And we wish you luck in your training this year. And snow's coming soon, hopefully.
Yes, it is. I'm so excited.
All right. And we will let you go to enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Emily, for visiting.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thank you.